Julia.
Dale.
Riley.
Jacinta.
Jane.
Dean.
Jonathan. Maureen.
Bob.
Good. Good to see you all.
Good to see you, Bob.
Well, we start off the same old way, I guess. We talk about it. It's what they call in Hinduism Advaita, meaning non-duality. And the way of putting non-duality is one without a second, not two. So, recognising that, you must realise that I can't teach you anything, and I can't tell you anything. All I can do is point toward and ask you to look to where I'm pointing to see for yourself. Because if it's one without a second, not two, nobody can tell you anything or nobody can teach you anything. What they describe in Hinduism is the non-duality is Sat, Chit and Ananda, Nama, Rupa. They're the five factors. Sat is existence, Chit is consciousness, and Ananda is loving to be, or they call it the bliss of being. A lot of people take on that word bliss and be looking for all sorts of states and things. But it's just a sense of being well, nothing wrong. Another way I put it is, I'm not speaking to anybody. I'm not speaking to any mind. I'm not speaking to that body-mind person that you believe you are. I'm speaking to that I am that I am. And the I am I'm talking about is the sense of presence. As expressed through the mind is the thought I am. Each one of you here will say, I am so-and-so, I am this, I am that. And put the label on it, whatever the name and form is, which we picked up along the way, and take it to be real. But we need to investigate these things and see for ourselves. Because that's another thing we point out, that the false cannot stand up to investigation. A lot of these concepts and ideas we've taken to be real, when you really investigate them, you see they won't stand up to the investigation. They'll fall apart. And you know that. Also, and that is the great mantra that everybody knows, which they say, I am that. Innately, you already know that. And you already know that everything is that. Because that's the chair you're sitting in. That's the room you're in. That's the space we're in. That's the tree out there. That's the flower. Everything is that, which we've discriminated with the word, the labels. How many words were you born with? When you realise you weren't born with any words, you didn't pick up words till you were about 2.5, when the capacity of reasoning developed in you. And you learnt words, your parents fussing around you, calling you little Billy or your little Jane or your little so-and-so. And naturally when that capacity of reasoning comes, you learnt other words like I and me. So then you put it on, well, this little Johnny they're talking about, that must be I or me. So I am little Johnny. And then we had other concepts that, as we learnt words, and put these concepts in, reinforce them. Our parents teach us words. We go to school, we learn more words. We start believing in the words all ourselves from then on. And so we're taking this conceptual image I've got about myself, the label that's been put on, we take it to be real. But when you realise you weren't born with any words, you didn't pick up any words till you were about a couple of years old, And you were living for those couple of years without the word. So you weren't born with any words. So the words have been picked up along the way. But is the word the real? Have a look, investigate. We say the false can't stand up. Take the word water. Can you drink the word? Can you swim in it? Can you drown in it? You can't. The word's not the real. Take the word fire. Can you cook with it? Can you heat yourself with it? You can't. Looking at other words too, you'll see that they're not real. So all these words have been picked up along the way, which we put the reasoning, we put a meaning on them and take the word to be real. And so we learn this word I, we learn, where does that come from? And you realise it comes from an ancient language. I think it was Latin. I am this person. Persona, the mask. With this virus going around, we've got to wear masks. But the mask is not what you really are. It hides your features, a little of that. So this word persona and the conceptual image we have about ourselves is not our true nature. So that's what we need to look at and see.
Can you think of yourself?
And that's what we've done. We've taken ourselves to be this persona.
You can't do that.
And this me or I, you realise with these other conceptual elements, only me that can be fearful, only me that can be anxious, only me that can be full of self-pity or resentful. So you realise that me is the cause of all my psychological suffering, the fear, the anger, the distress, the guilt, the shame, remorse. They're all the concepts we put onto these words. Yeah. Realise it's all the one essence that's patterning, shaping, forming, appearing and expressing through as all these things. Are you this body? Are you this person when you investigate? Innately you know they're not the person or the body because you say my body. Don't you say my house, my car, my coat? Are you the coat? You're not. Are you the car? You're not. Are you the house? Well, maybe you're not the body either when you look into it. What's the body made up of? And you'll realise the body's made up of elements. Air, earth, fire, water, space. Well, take those elements out of the body. Stop breathing. Take the air out of the body. How long are you going to last without the air? Take the water. Your body's 60% water. Take the fire. The body temperature is soon at hypothermia. Get off the earth if you can. Get out of space. So you realise you're not separate from these elements. And they can all be broken down to subatomic particles into pure energy. So all this body is a vibrating pattern of energy. This thing you call mind. Are you the mind? Again you say my mind. Just like my coat, my car. Well, if you believe you are the mind, show me this thing you call mind. Can you show me anything? You can say, this is mind. And you realise there's no such thing as mind apart from thought. And what's a thought? A word, a sound, a concept, a vibration, a movement of energy. So that's all that mind is also, a vibrating pattern of intelligence energy. It's suffused with innate intelligence. It knows what to do. I don't use the term God here. You can get confused with that term. Purely and simply, all the great traditions have different terms of what they think God is. Hindus will say have 1,000 names of Vishnu. They have hundreds of different names for their God. The Muslims will say there's no God but God. Allah is his name. The Hebrews say
Hero Israel.
hmm?
Hero Israel.
Yeah, Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one God. There is nothing other. It tells you in Isaiah, be still and know that I am is God. That sense of presence. All these different names for it. I use the term intelligence energy instead of God. But that's not it either, because there's no concept or label that you can grasp it with. Just this presence awareness. And when I'm talking about intelligence, I'm not talking about your intellect, because there are different degrees and stages of intellect in this room right now. I'm saying look out there in nature and see how nature's functioning. And the way it's patterning, shaping, forming, day, night, seasons, tides, implies it's suffused with an innate intelligence that's enabling to do that. And vibrates in all these things. So when you've investigated, you see you are not this body, you're not this mind, you are not this person. What must you be? You must be what it's all pointing to, the absolute. The Lord thy God is one God, there is nothing other. Pointing out that that's all there is. Tells you that in the Bible. In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God, the Word was God. All things were made by him, by the Word. And there was nothing made that was made without the Word. So that's where we got lost along the way. We put words on that which has no words to it. It's pure, or subject into it. It's pure being, knowing and loving to be. Anyone who is not being right now, and you'll say, no, I'm being. I'm not unaware. I'm happy to be. So you already are that. And the basic screen in which it all appears on is that space, emptiness, stillness. Can you separate yourself from space? Can you find a centre to space? Can you find a circumference to it? Can you find an end to it or a beginning to it? You can't. So there's nothing you can conceptualise that can be outside of that space. Try and postulate to think of something that could be out of space. What would it be in? So you must be that space-like awareness, which they call, in Buddhism, they call it a cognising emptiness. An emptiness with the capacity of cognising or knowing. We think we cognise the emptiness, but they don't mean that at all. It means the emptiness itself has that capacity of cognising or knowing. And he made the statement then that emptiness is form. All this manifestation, the patterns, shapes and forms, are all emptiness. Because he turned it round the other way and said that emptiness is form, and the form can be nothing other than that emptiness. So these patterns, shapes and forms, these bodies, minds, are all that same cognising emptiness. It's absolute. What can you add to the absolute? Nothing. It wouldn't be absolute if you could add anything to it. What can you take away from it? Nothing. It wouldn't be absolute. So they call it the absolute, or the great perfection. There's another term there. What can you add to the perfect? Nothing. What can you take away from the perfect? Nothing. And they call it the cognising emptiness. They give it in one sentence in Buddhism. The great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. That awareness which is with you right now, there's nobody who's unaware right in this moment. Non-conceptual awareness is right what's going on right now. So you are already that. As we pointed out earlier, that's the great mantra. I am that. Innately you know it, because you say that's the chair you're sitting on, that's the room you're in, that's the space. Everything is that which we put meanings on. That is me, that is you. That emptiness before the pattern, shapes and forms came about. Well, if you think you are that body, mind, when were you born? You don't remember your birth. Because why didn't you remember your birth? You had no words. And you didn't learn any words till you were about 2, and you learnt words from your parents. So you lived for the first couple of years of your life without the word. But now you've got on, I am this person, I am this body, mind. We've got that belief taken on, we haven't investigated and seen through. Well, investigate that then. When did you begin? Well, you don't remember your birth, you can't say, but we'll go back as far as your father and your mother and say that animating life essence, that intelligence energy that you call your father, through the air he's breathing, the prana, and the food he's eating, enabled in that pattern, a little microscopic particle called a sperm to form. You can't see it with the naked eye, but it was suffused with intelligence. It knew what to do. The same with the mother, the same life essence that pattern shaped and formed your mother, and that pattern, the innate intelligence in it through the food and the prana, the breath, enabled in that pattern another little pattern of energy.
Another particle to form.
Yeah, another called an egg or an ovum. Now that egg was suffused with intelligence energy. It attached itself to the wall of the uterus. It knew what to do. And the sperm, knowing what to do, suffused that intelligence, it swam to the ovum and penetrated the ovum. When those two came together, what happened? Well, the intelligence energy doubled that cell and doubled it again and again, and the little embryo was formed, which is what you are today, the little fetus, the little embryo. What were you doing about it then? You had no words, but the living was happening spontaneously and effortlessly, naturally, growing that little fetus, little embryo, but you hadn't, the capacity of reasoning hadn't developed in you at all. So that means you are prior to the thought, prior to the word. So if this conceptual idea, this image you got is all thought up, how can you be this person? You're not. What just you be? Well, look at it again, you must be that life energy. And isn't that what Christ told you? I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. People thought he was talking about himself. He wasn't. He was talking about that sense of presence, which translates as the thought I am, but it's the sense of presence of life itself he was talking about. And see that. Take that life out of the body, what do you got? You got a corpse. Before it rots down, that corpse got eyes, got ears, got heart, lung, all the organs and nerves and things like that are in it, that are functioning, living it, enabling it to express through words. But take that life out of it, what do you got? You got a corpse. Now, that corpse made up of the elements, it'll break down into the elements again. So if the life has gone out of it, it can't do anything. So what must you be? Are you the body, are you the mind, or are you the life itself? And a good analogy of that is like the computer. Computer's got all those valves or whatever they are in it, little things that enable it to function. But what good is it if the power's not turned on? You can't get anything out of it at all without the power on. So what must you be? You must be that life, that power itself, not the body, mind, not the patterns expressing through. And that's what you are, and it's the one essence, it's the one power, or the one essence that's patterning, shaping, forming, expressing as everything. So, what's the search going on about? Sat, Chit and Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. Are you existing right now? Of course you are. Are you conscious? Well, you're not. You're certainly conscious. You're not unaware. If you're not unaware, you must be aware. Are you happy to be? You don't want to be dead right now, so you're happy to be. So you are that Sat, Chit and Ananda already. So why are you looking for it? And what do you think you're going to find? Well, you've been searching for years probably. Some of us have been looking at it, going into all the texts and the scriptures and looking into this, looking into that. But you haven't found the answer. Now, you're not idiots. You're intelligent people. Why haven't you found the answer? Well, mightn't have just dawned on you, or maybe I've been looking in the wrong direction. Where have we been looking? We've been looking in the mind for it all these years. And they tell you in the scriptures the answer's not in the mind. They express it this way, that they'll say, there's no such thing as peace as peace. Peace of mind. You'll never get peace of mind. The peace, they call it the peace which passes all understanding. And why would they say that? Because they're pointing out you can't grasp it with the mind. It's prior to the mind. And how can you be prior to the mind? Be without the thought. You were prior to the mind for 2 years of life, and you got on all right without it. But then we learnt words, and we got lost in the words of concepts. As Shakespeare tells you, there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. And the Sagata tells you the same thing. Nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. Now that's an amazing thing to look at. Realise that all the troubles you have and fears and anxiety and stress, nothing can trouble you except your own imagination. Break that word imagination down to image in or imagine, and realise that's all we're doing. We're making up conceptual images in our heads all the time with the thoughts vibrating into words which are images, and we're taking them to be real. Look in a mirror. What do you see in a mirror? You'll see reflections or images. Now you go up to the mirror and try and grab an image out of the mirror. You see your face in the mirror. Go and try and grab yourself out of the mirror. You realise you can't. But you can't say it's not there, because it still appears to be there. But you can't say it is there. So it is, and it is not. So it's not divided. There is nothing divided. everything, though it appears separate and apart, it is not separate or apart. And everything is transient, it's constantly changing. They realise that this body we're sitting in right here is not the same body you walked into this room with. There are hundreds of thousands of cells dying right at this moment. And not only dying, but they're being replaced. Now each cell that replaces through the food you've eaten and the breath, the prana and the breath and the energy, each cell that replaces is suffused with that life or intelligence energy. It's not a dead image it's been replaced with. So your body is transient. It's constantly changing. But we think it's the same body we've had from the time we were born. And we think that that manifestation had a beginning with a big bang some thousands of years ago. That's what you need to look into also. It's time. See that the concept of time is a fiction also. Is there a past if you don't think about it? Well, have a look at that. If I'm not thinking, can there be a past? Can there be a future without a thought? But you'll say, I was in the past. Oh, all right. I'll say, try and live yesterday. Try and live last week or last year. You realise you can't live it, but you can recall it. It's in the seeming memory. It's not the actual anymore. And you realise you can't tell me what you thought of a minute ago now unless you recall it. It's already gone. And you can anticipate and imagine the future. But you can't live in the future. You can anticipate and imagine what you're going to do when this meeting finishes or before it finishes something. But you can't actually live in the future. That anticipation and imagination will be going on right now. And while we're in the past, recalling the past, and imagining it, anticipating the future, you've conceptually moved away in your mind from the presence, from this immediacy, with a conceptual image. And that is constantly changing. And see how that works in us. You got this conceptual image. Me, Bob, the Australian's a good fellow, not so good, for the words I've learned. Something comes up and you like it. How do you know? Well, I've experienced this before and it's good. And we don't want the good things to go. Not realising, no matter how much you love them, no matter how much you want to keep them there, they're going to go. They're transient, just the same as this body is transient. It's constantly changing. We don't want it to go, so what do? We try to keep it there by resisting it, getting into the mind of doing all we can to resist it, to change it, stop it from going. And don't you realise that resistance is conflict? Any resistance you are in conflict. And what does that conflict do? It makes you unhappy, fearful, anxious, depressed, guilty, remorseful. And all that uneasiness, another word for uneasiness is disease. So there's resistance, conflict and disease going in this all the time. Because it goes the other way then. Being a vibration, it goes the other way. We try to keep this thought there, it can't. Now, but another thought will come up of itself. Oh, it's a bad thought. I shouldn't be thinking that sort of thing. Shouldn't be doing that. I've got to get rid of it. What do? I resist it again. This time trying to push it out. Again there's a conflict and disease. And that's all the life's made up of. Constant resistance, conflict and disease. Brief moments when it's at ease, and it should be at ease all the time, so-called time. Now it's constantly uneasiness. And when you investigate it and see what is the cause of all my problems, and you realise it's only me that can be uneasy, unhappy, depressed, guilty. It's all happening to me or I. And what's this E or my? Me or mine? Didn't I point out before that it's a conceptual image we have about ourselves? So you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar to work that out. If it's me that's causing all the things, me is the cause, the believed in me is the cause of all my psychological problems. And the effects are my fear, my anger, my oppression, my shame, my guilt, remorse. All these are the effects of the cause me. And isn't that what so-called karma is? Cause and effect? Well, what happened if I ask myself the simple question? Can there be an effect of not relating to the cause? Well, you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar to work that out. If you're not related to a cause, where can the effect lodge? There's nowhere for it to lodge. You have to say that the cause, me, is a fiction. So I can be rid of all my karma by recognising that. Where does that leave you? In the non-conceptual, ever-fresh, spontaneous, intelligence energy that's functioning naturally and effortlessly. What needs to happen is in the recognition of that there is no cause, no effect. It's just a spontaneous vibration, a natural functioning, which we put labels on. Then in good, bad. That's how the mind functions. It's always functioning in the interrelated opposites. It's either past, future, pleasant, painful, happy, sad, loving, hating, positive, negative, high, low, far, near, whichever way you put it. It's always vibrating in the interrelated opposites. If you're not putting the boundaries on them, the word, where's it going to go? See, the thing is, we take those words that's the way the mind is functioning and vibrating in the opposites. But we take them to be two separate things. But if you realise there are no two-ended stick, there's no two-ended thing, it's all one-ended. It's all a one-ended stick, it's all a one-ended essence that's apparently vibrating into the pairs of opposites and putting the labels, the words we've left, the boundaries on it. That's great. But then you have a look and investigate that and see how many thoughts are stitched in your head. How many thoughts are stuck there? You realise there's no thought stitched in my head. The thoughts come and thoughts go. But I believe them to be stuck there. And we fixate on the one thought and keep it there when it's a natural, spontaneous vibration. Keep it there longer. And so we're missing out on living. They call it in the scriptures, ignorance is our problem. We hear that term and we think we're dull or stupid. We think ignorance means we're dull or stupid. They're not meaning that at all. What they're meaning is we are ignoring our true nature, ignoring our reality and focusing into this belief we've taken on board. And that's causing that ignorance or ignoring our true nature is causing all the trouble. So have a look at that too and see how that's functioning. There's a statement in one of the scriptures, be utterly awake with the five senses wide open, and realise you're not unaware right now, so you must be aware or awake right now. But be utterly awake, totally awake, with the five senses wide open, where you're hearing, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, feeling, whatever the senses are. It's all happening right now. But notice, though they're all open, we're not noticing, we're fixating on one to the exclusion of everything else. See that car motor going past right now? You probably weren't noticing it because you might have been noticing it more than that, and what you noticed on this doesn't make any difference what you're fixating on. But that's what happens though. We fixate on the one to the exclusion of the other. So that means we're not living fully. While you've shut yourself off from the other senses and fixated on the one, you're not with the totality, you're not with life itself. So it says be utterly awake with the five senses wide open, and be utterly open to unfixated awareness, where you're not fixating on it. So if something comes up, you hear it and you know what's going on. You haven't shut yourself off from the sunlight of the spirit at all. But as we're thinking now and worrying and concerning ourselves with this, that or the other, we have shut ourselves off. And it's caused all our problems. But life is ever fresh and ever free. I use the analogy of the sun. You go outside on a sunny day, on a cloudy day I should say, would you say the sun's not in the sky? No. You know the sun, and I know the sun has never left the sky. We've investigated it and know that for certain. That's why we say the false can't stand up to investigation. But then you say, well, the cloud's there. What forms the cloud? When you look into it, you see, well, the sun itself forms the cloud. Now, the sun doesn't know anything about the cloud. The vastness of the cloud, of the sun, there are spaces in the universe where there are no clouds that hadn't fallen in. The sun, in its radiance, continues to shine. But what does it do? When you see the sun itself forms the cloud, though it knows nothing about the cloud. In its radiance, what does it do? It evaporates water. The water rises and cools down as soon as it rises and condenses again, comes into water again. And that water, when it cools down, will either come down as rain or the wind will blow it away and diffuse it. But its radiance is still shining its fullness. Now when it disperses it or blows it away, what happens in the sky? Isn't there more clarity? The sun's shining in its fullness, and that radiance, that warmth in the sun is like when we clear ourselves of the clouds of thoughts and feelings, there's an affectionate in there, a warmness, a natural compassion, a sense of well-being, without being obscured by thoughts, feelings and emotions. But what obscures it is the concepts, the words, the ideas, the thoughts. And what is it? Like the sun is like the life of you. The radiance of the sun, or the radiance of that life. There's a warmth in it, a sense of well-being, a sense of nothing wrong anymore. Shakespeare told you there's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. When you're not locked into the thoughts. Well-being, look at that term. But in other words, it's being well. And another way of putting Satchitananda is being, knowing and loving to be. Anyone who's not being right now, you realise, no, I'm being. Am I knowing? I'm not knowing, so I must be knowing. And I don't want to be dead right now. So you already are that. But see what we've done with that? We call ourselves human beings. And if we believe in God, we call God Supreme Being. So we start something up, an absolute something greater than us, this pure higher being. But it's only one being, pattern, shape and forming, experience, everything. So, take away that word human. Take away that word supreme. Try and separate the beingness right now that's with you. Can you say you're not being right now? Without the label human or without the label supreme or God, you are pure being right here and right now. So don't have to try and become something, because you'll never become anything. Becoming implies a future time. And I pointed out before that time is a mental concept. There's no such thing as time unless you think about it. So there's always a spontaneous now. And you are always and ever that. But while we're constantly going into the search and believing we're going to get something, it hasn't happened, and that's why it hasn't happened. Because you've got some conceptual image. Instead of being what you are, as they say, be as you are, we're trying to become something. And we've got this concept of what we think a human being is. Well, after all, I'm only human. This poor miserable, but I've got to become like God. Get enlightenment, realise. And I will become such and such. It doesn't happen. And that's why it doesn't. But that's what the ancients have recognised and told us. Put it in many different scriptures and texts. And some have put other concepts on which have diluted it or lost sight of the reality of it. But anyone who is not being right now, you can't say, I am not. You've got to be there to say it. You can say it as much as you like, but realise you've got to be there to say it. Without the so-called believed in entity, you are still being. What's wrong with right now if you don't think about it? Without a thought you can't say anything, but without that thought, when you come to that stage of realising, you realise your heart hasn't stopped beating. Your hair and your fingernails haven't gone. The thinking hasn't stopped. The functioning's still going on, naturally and spontaneously. So, what must you be? You must be the life that's animating, expressing through this body. And that life that's expressing was the intelligence energy in that sperm and ovum and the essence of the food eaten before that formed it. So you are, like Christ you can say, you are the life itself. You are already that. So that's what we're pointing out here. And some of you have looked into it. Some of you can express it pretty well. Don't hesitate to tell us about it, because there are others in the room that might hear what you're saying, hear it differently from what I'm saying it. And some of you might have questions or doubts. That's all that needs to happen, is to question and look into it, because the false cannot stand up to investigation. And saying is know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Look into the beliefs and see beliefs are fiction. Your dictionary definition of belief is an unquestioned acceptance of something in the absence of reason, acceptance of an alleged fact without positive knowledge or proof. Put your belief to that test. If they stand up to it, well, they're facts. If they don't stand up to it, they are beliefs, they're not true. Why cling to the belief when the belief is the cause of all your problems? So, away you go. You want to say something?
Yes, I have a couple of comments. from people who are with us online. We have 25 people with us, and welcome everyone again. We have a comment from Fiona, who says, love Bob's term fused with infinite intelligence. I think that is what he said. And that sounds great, fused with infinite intelligence. What Bob says is suffused with intelligence energy. Not that far, it's really the same thing, but suffused is kind of a little bit of a more kind of absolute word, like infused, like completely immersed, like it's totally inseparable. So everything is suffused with that intelligence, means it is that intelligence. They are not two. You can't separate that intelligence from anything, from cells, from stars, from galaxies, from thoughts, anything. All of it is basically just the way that energy manifests. It's just the highlight that it is so brilliant and it's so seemingly organized and intelligent. Good point, Fiona. Thank you for bringing it up. And we have another comment from, or request from Amarnath. Dear loving Bob, can you please tell us the difference between thoughtless awareness and thoughts without thinker, please? That's actually exactly the same request from last week. Yeah, thoughtless awareness and thoughts without thinker.
Well, without a thought, have you stopped being? Without thought, have you stopped being? Have you stopped breathing? Hasn't it?
No.
Oh.
So that's the thoughtless awareness.
Yeah.
And now the difference between the thoughtless awareness and the thought.
Well, thoughts are just vibrations, movement of energy. Now, those we take on board and believe we are thinking the thought, like that's what they call intellect, you know. But the thoughts that come up spontaneously, you know. Intuitive, natural thoughts, that's the difference. They're coming from the reality. Though everything is coming from the reality, but it's what translation you put on them in a word.
Yeah, so you could say the difference between the awareness, thoughtless awareness, and thought is the awareness is kind of basic screen, and thought is what appears on the screen.
Yeah.
Like there is a space and the forms appear in the space. So the basic awareness is the space, and the thought is the content of space.
Yeah.
However, they're not two, again. They're not two. They just, the pure potentiality, the field of potentiality, and how the potentiality is realized as the thought or image or object or shape or smell or whatever the sensation. But they're not two. They're one. The vibration, either kind of static sort of a non-vibrational potentiality or manifestation, which is the movement of energy.
Yeah, but one of the quotes in the Bible is saying, "Thou shalt hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk ye in it, whether you turn to the left or turn to the right." That's what I call the still small voice. It's an intuitive. What does intuitive mean? Intuition. It's an inner teaching, an inner rising of itself. It's not the conceptual thing. And you know, each one of us had tastes of that throughout our life at different times. When something is said, don't do this or don't go there, when you haven't been reasoning it out, when you had every intention of doing something else. So to cultivate that more and more, let it happen.
Natural functioning. But coming back to the question, I'd like to just add that, Amarnath, this is really good to look at the tiny differentiation to understand the concepts better. And thank you for bringing it up, because then we can clarify it. Is that asking about the difference, the subtle difference between one and the other. But ultimately, we always land up at the recognition that no matter how different things appear, they are one in essence. So the thought and the thoughtlessness, they're one in essence. The form and the emptiness, one in essence. There seems to be a difference in the appearance. But actually, it is a good question to ask to clarify further. But I would really like the question, how are they the same? how everything, how is the form and emptiness the same?
Well, it's all
Movement and stillness.
yeah, it's still all the two ends of the one stick.
Yeah.
Same. Non-duality.
Mm-hmm. And we have
Now,
another.
dualism is relativity. Relations. All relationship is duality. And there is no such thing as duality. It's all the one essence. And what divides it? Just the conceptual take we put on it, the word. It's neither either, as Shakespeare said, neither is good or bad, but thinking makes it so. That's what's divided, the thoughts or the thinking. It's just a spontaneous emanation. What's spontaneous? It's beginningless and endless.
And we have another comment from Tanya. Listening to a talk this morning that mentioned Dzogchen, the great perfection, there was awe, amazement and tears, knowing innately that I am that intelligence energy. So stunningly beautiful. Thank you, Bob and Kat and everyone. Love you lots. Thank you, Tanya. Yes, it is. Sometimes the word, the simple word, and I love that great perfection, is non-conceptual awareness. That's the little short description from Dzogchen. Nothing else needs to be said. That's it. The great perfection is always underlying the conceptual awareness, because the non-conceptual basic screen, the awareness of presence, it doesn't need the concepts, and it is always there. Nobody can say, I am not.
Not a beautiful saying they have is let it rest in its uncontrived singularity. It's only a singularity. Don't contrive it by adding this and that to it.
Beautiful. And we have Amarnath, separate me, first person, and others, second and third person, created simultaneously. We are prior to me or others. And now Tanya says, fear, false evidence appearing real. Notice this on a walk this morning. There is a story that there is a fear of dogs here, and came across a few, and all were friendly. Dogs are the same intelligence, energy I am. Wasn't even facing my fears. No me and no my and no fear, just energy. Beautiful.
With no one to claim it.
Yeah, and then even without a label, fear is yes, all just energy, and no one to claim it. And that's it for the moment. So now it's all up to you to comment, share.
I'd like to share.
Oh yeah, just get this one.
This is a bit of a shoo-in. I've been doing a little directed self-inquiry with a friend, and some interesting things occurred. One of them is that at great depth there was an oscillation of experience between the eternal witnessing, then the recognition that that's rubbish, I'm everything, then again the recognition of the witness, back and forth like that. And for quite a few hours after that, in the rest of the day, there was just awareness, but that awareness was so strong or apparent that I just couldn't imagine, and so natural, I just couldn't imagine there could be anything else but this, and how could I possibly lose it? And I woke up the next morning and the bloody thing had gone. So there you go.
Probably not gone.
None, well,
It's obscured.
Obscured, yes, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it had been.
You said you went back and forth between witness and witnessing or something?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, it's okay.
See, they're all concepts you put on it too. If it's the one essence, you can't, what might appear to be a witness and witnessing. As you say, and then you saw that basic awareness was there, but then you seemingly think you lost it again. You haven't. Might be seemingly obscured, but there's no cloud ever obscured the sun.
This was a very thick cloud.
I know the feeling.
And how about now?
Well, now it's very nice, I have to say that.
It does seem like a good way to begin the day, though. I mean, no, to just go back and forth between witness and witnessing. The mornings I'll sometimes just do my best to begin the day without the thoughts, to just be, and just don't go there. But I like the idea of anyway, just sort of going back and forth between the, witness and witnessing, and then it all just falls away and you're left with just what is. It seems like a nice way to start the day, that's all.
When you say it's a nice way to start the day, is there a choice?
No. No.
And going back and forth between witness and witnessing, there is no witness.
No. That's what's nice about it. It just sort of brings it out.
Okay.
Right.
Go back to say what we just said before, the great perfection is non-conceptual awareness. If you not put any concepts on it at all, can there be a witness?
No.
Yeah.
And it can still appear. Everything can still appear as it does. It may still feel strongly that there is a person. It may feel strongly that there is someone who knows that there is a person. It may still feel strongly that there is the witnessing awareness, knowing about the observer of the person. It is still part of the content of the way it plays out. So even though it is all Maya, it is all dream, it is all kind of like just like at night in the dream, it still looks and appears so beautifully real and realistic. And yes, and can you choose to start the day certain way? Well, there could be very strong illusion that you can. It can be very strong idea that yes, I can just put on the YouTube and listen and get inspired, and that is what is happening, and it always works. Yes, but what caused the first thought to play the YouTube or listen to Bob or do? Yeah, this is all grand illusion. The illusion of free will, the illusion of choice is totally there. Can't deny it. What for?
No, I wasn't saying it was a choice.
No, you didn't. You never said it was a choice. You said it's a nice way of starting a date, which basically means there is an appreciation showing up in the sphere of awareness to that way of starting a day. You never said it was a choice, absolutely.
Just to clarify, in this instance, there was a shift between witnessing and the recognition that I was everything, back to witnessing, back to the recognition that I was everything. It was also extremely humorous.
Yes.
That's expressions of the natural state again. It's always vibrating dualistically. It couldn't, otherwise there'd be no appearance whatsoever.
And the lightness of it, that humorousness of it, is a really, really good barometer. The lightness, like you say, you felt like, oh, it is so obvious, it's so natural. How could I ever lose it? And it is. You can never lose it. You can never lose the awareness of presence. But then the mind comes to the picture and says, no, there was something else that the mind, had. But there is no mind. It's just a thought process saying there was something that happened to me. but it happened in the absence of me, and it constantly happens. It's happening all the time. It's just that the story of me comes and claims it and makes it a thing that can be lost or gained. And when you see the whole process, it is again, it's light and laughable, like, oh, how smart. How can you make non-conceptual basic awareness of existence into a thing called enlightenment or awakening or clarity that you can have or lose? Like Bob says, no cloud can ever obscure the sun. And I love the way Bob actually explains it by taking a picture, like not from the human perspective. We look up there, a sun is a tiny little ball there, and the big heavy clouds that are much closer to the observer can completely hide it. There is no sun. But take the more kind of appropriate picture that we know from the investigation called science. And you have this whole galaxies floating around in the open space. One of a tiny one on the edge is called Milky Way. Thousands of suns there, or maybe millions. And one tiny little sun there floating. Light years away from it, or light minutes away from it, because I think it's in 8 minutes that light travels with 300 over 1,000 kilometers per hour. There you get the little Earth, invisible from the surface of sun. And over that Earth, you have the tiny little layer of atmosphere. And in that layer of atmosphere, you have some clouds floating. What does it matter from the sun's perspective? That the Earth and the planets, they don't even have real existence, let alone a little cloud floating somewhere. And now this is the picture that you are the sun, you are the source of that radiance, you are that intelligence energy. You're not the Earth, you're not the person on the Earth, you're not the cloud or the atmosphere, you're not the little ant on the other side of that layer of atmosphere. And recognizing that, what thought can ever do to you? It may take some attention, but the existence doesn't suffer the least. The suffering is part of the appearance, but the existence is never touched.
Mind out.
Your doubt, yes. Who's that?
Mind out.
Who's that? Yeah, mind doubt.
You don't have to be concerned, Richard. You're showing out of your face. It's a lot better than it was a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the change.
Yeah. But when you think you're human being, that's where the story starts. And Claudio.
Bob, you mentioned about that everything is an image or a mirror, an image that is mirrored of something else. For example, when we look in the mirror, we know that we see only an image. But when we look at the chair, for example, what is an image of? So the chair, the table, what it is an image of?
Image in space. All the content of space. You and I are things. The chair's a thing. The table's a thing. The trees, the flower are all things appearing in that basic screen of no thing. It can something come from no thing. Can't. So it's all no thing, it's all appearing in. And we are just things, so we are really no thing also, appearing as things, taking ourselves to believe. Just like dream characters. Only seemingly so. When you wake up from the dream, where does everything go when you wake from the dream? It's all appearing to be real in the dream, but it all disappears. And you realise your body hadn't moved off the bed. No words had come out of your mouth. But what we don't realise, we wake up to this dream. This dream right now is a waking dream. And the only difference between this and the sleeping dream, when you wake up, everything disappears. But this waking dream seeming has a continuity from where it left off the night before. You wake up in the morning and there's powers of the things and all the things that were there last night are still there. The concepts and ideas that are going on in your mind. And this body's still here. So we wake up to the dream. People think you've got to wake from the dream. It's not. It's waking up to the dream.
Mm.
And, and as it says again in the Bible, 1,000 years in thy sight can be like a flash of light, yeah. Like a moment when it's gone. So, instead of all those concepts of years and years back to the Big Bang or whenever it began, it's all happened right now. Beginningless and endless, spontaneous. Get that one in, and the fear of death will disappear. Where did you come from? Where do you think you're going to go? You can't get yourself out of space.
We've got, I missed out that comment, and Amarnath, oh, now it's gone. What is, someone with initial A says, Dear Bob, what is reflected consciousness? That's the question, and I think Amarnath was answering it somewhere. Can't see. Yeah, I've seen a moment ago. Maybe you can answer it before it shows up. Reflected consciousness. I don't know where that term comes from.
Neither do I. If it's reflected consciousness, basically it's consciousness.
Yes. Oh yeah, I see what, because Amarnath obviously understands the question, so he answers, without original source, there cannot be reflection. Appearance pattern, duality forms are reflection of formless non-dual intelligence. And he says further, me and chair are images, things on imageless self-waking dream. Beautiful, thanks a million, Bob. So what Amarnath answered to that reflected consciousness, that there cannot be reflection or appearance pattern without original source.
That's what I was saying.
Okay, yeah, I didn't quite understand the question because reflected consciousness, I'm not sure.
Oh, reflected images in the mirror.
Okay.
What are they? Reflections?
Yeah, but the consciousness, it again depends on the definition of consciousness. If you think the consciousness is the sort of a wakefulness, then the reflection in what?
Everything is reflecting into the screen of emptiness.
Okay, yeah. So Julia says, thank you, Amarnath. And now we have another. Oh, that's a good one. And thank you, Amarnath, for highlighting it because I've missed the comment too. This is British Julia asking, can you speak on getting annoyed with others? And a smiley face. The mind feels like it needs to hold on to a story, but you did this to me, the story. In presence, there is no me, no other. Yet, some of these patterns of survival are difficult to let go of. It's a protective mechanism. It feels like you might risk becoming a doormat, complacent, but really holding on to a story is becoming harder and harder. I guess this is true forgiveness of the heart, not the forgiveness imagined previously by the mind. I think I've answered myself here, but good to discuss. And now Amarnath says, separate me, first person and others. Oh, this I somehow see. Created simultaneously. We are prior to me or others. Yes, so would you like to comment on that getting annoyed story, which is protective mechanism and which is hard to let go of and should be forgiven from the heart?
Well, see the difference between response and react. Natural response is what will come up spontaneous to be done. Reacting to something, you're reacting with some previous concept about me that is happening to.
Yeah, and I kind of like the way of looking at it is like if you see the story, oh, they did it to me, how dare they shouldn't have. And you recognize it as a story, you do what Richard is just doing now, you laugh. Because it is a laughable story, because nobody has any doership, any power or any choice. Everything is acting out whatever there was, the conditioning is there. So it's neither you that have been done wrong, nor the others that have done it. But when the recognition usually brings up that laughter. And of course, you're right, this is a protective story. You want to have someone to blame, so you feel innocent. But if you see through that one, it is beautiful too. I mean, you are innocent, and so are they.
And I used to love what Bob said, just see everything fresh and new. Just fresh and new. So that's the story just drops and you see everything and everybody fresh and new. No story. End of story.
And then you shout at him.
Possibly.
Yeah, I love this insight too, because the forgiveness isn't even necessary. It's a natural byproduct of just seeing that the snake was always a rope.
Yeah, we have another comment from... Oh, did you want to say something? Please.
Yes, another experience with this directed self-inquiry, he had me go follow the various senses all the way back as far as I could go, and particularly with the feeling sense, the feeling of the body on the chair or the cushion. Just looking at the feeling itself beyond the level of labelling, I didn't know what the hell these were. They were so fascinating, like a baby's fascination with something. Just the experience alone, naked and natural, was gorgeous.
Beautiful. And it's available all the time. That experiencing. Amarnath says, thinker or thought is the mirror never existed. And a lot of smiley faces here. And now, so also reflection, enjoy the absence as presence, presence as absence, two ends of the same stick. As such, no ends or beginnings too. Love. And Heyman says, I love Bob, and few people put the hearts on it. And now Heyman says, I love Bob and I love Kat. Thank you for our fresh and new satsang. Dito, Heyman, we love you too. And good morning messages, and that's it for the comments. Anyone?
I have one comment to make, just so I say it before I forget. But tomorrow morning we'll be online if anybody wants to join us. That's at 9:30 Melbourne time on Zoom. Go to Bob's website.
I know my question will be probably a little bit divergent from what's been discussed so far, or maybe not. But is there such a thing like purpose?
Good question. Question about purpose. Purpose.
Is there such a thing as purpose?
Who for?
Who for? Who would be having a purpose. Yeah, it may seem like, if you look at the world of the animals, it may seem that lion has the purpose to procreate and protect the animals and feed themselves and get old and die. It may seem like the tree has the purpose, basically the same purpose. But this is only the after story that we have about it. In the non-conceptual awareness, if there is no thinking going on, the story, the story of goal or aim or purpose or achievements are stories, and our wonderful capacity to utilize that storytelling part of the brain, the language part of the brain, is to be totally appreciated. But if you remember that's a story, you may see how the purpose actually unfolds from the hindsight. Like, you think you do something for a particular reason, but life takes you to a completely different place, and then you realize, oh, that was the real purpose. But that's also just the after story. You have maybe some examples or some more specific parts to question?
Not. I mean, it's a more of a. Again, it was probably a more vague question. Is there a particular person, a purpose? I mean, there is a course happening tomorrow. There is another event happening. We are, maybe circling or not. We might go into a, we came here with a purpose, I guess. We came here, and from here we're gonna go, in a different place, and we are driven to do things.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
it's the narrative commenting what we do, giving it meaning.
yes, and we try to to bring a meaning, to have a meaningful life, and
It's all interdependent. Relates to something else all the time.
Yes, so you said, Bob, this is all interdependent, relating to something else all the time?
Yeah.
Elaborate.
Pardon?
Elaborate, please.
Well, if there wasn't an earth, could you appear? There wasn't a life, could you have that? Wasn't the air, the earth, or any of these things? Could you do without them?
No, but what Claudia was saying, that we came here to listen to you with some sort of a purpose in our mind, and then after that we will go somewhere and we will give a meaning in the narrative. There is a purpose. If we go for lunch, we go for lunch, and the narrative straight away comes, we have to feed ourselves to be healthy or to be alive. There's like seemingly in the storyteller sort of a part of the brain, there is always some sort of a meaning or purpose assigned to everything.
But have you found the meaning or purpose to it?
No, I haven't. I may just hear the narrative.
Yeah, well,
saying.
the narrative will go on, but who for?
Yeah.
Who for? Yeah.
Who for? Yeah, so that's the good observation, to actually see how the mind creates the meaning for everything that happens. It doesn't have a clue. Most of the things, like we do just because that's what the body does. But the mind will straight away comes with the meaning, including very elaborative stories about physiological functions, which we don't really control very well. Just watching the mind is really enlightening to actually see. Julia wanted to add on that.
I'm just going to jump in just from a quote that I got years ago. Nothing has any meaning except for the meaning that we give it. But we're not doing that either. That just happens.
Yeah,
it's
that's right.
yeah.
And it's the nature of the mind to name and claim. That's the nature of the mind, to name and claim. So to name things as a purpose, to claim it as ours, that's the nature of the mind. And it's always going to do that. But there's just life itself. We are life itself.
You can make a
Nothing can be taken from us or added to us. And the narrator will always go on having its little story. And you're either attracted or repelled to something. You are attracted to coming here today, to be pointed to the truth of your own nature. That's what you're attracted to be pointed to who you really are. Yeah, or who you're not. You know, who you're not is the story. Who you really are is life itself. Love or truth or pure intelligence, energy or life itself. And then the narration wants to figure all that out. You know, that's its little game. It's always naming and claiming and trying to figure everything out. But in actual fact, there was an attraction to coming home to the place you never left.
Bob wants to say.
Just the same as free will. Is there such a thing as free will?
Well, doesn't that come from, like, say, the difference in intuition? If, say, for example, today, like, I'm aware of, don't go searching everywhere to find out who you are. But intuitively, this week, just from a knowing, rather than a sitting there thinking, my intuition was like going over to see Bob and Kat. Because I think with that intuition, when it comes from a more knowing, just a knowing as a resonance, rather than me sitting there thinking and pondering, oh, Maureen, what are you going to do to go and see Bob because you might wake up? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So putting that aside, because having the just the awareness that, yes, there is an essence within me, the thing that comes for me that is intuitively, there's a truth. The truth is what I'm doing over here is not correct. It's causing suffering.
Yeah.
So intuitively, I feel sometimes it takes you to places, peoples and things. You just get guided, and then I think, and then later I go, that knowing was without even going on it being correct, but yeah, the sense of, thank you, I was guided in the right way. Yeah. Like you said before, with the sperm going to the ovum, it's intuitively going where it's directed. So I understand what Claudia was asking when about a purpose. It's not always about what we're necessarily thinking. We're intuitively here. Life helps us create. And through intuition, we start creating.
Yeah.
So that's kind of without putting too many conceptual words and getting carried and locked away with them, because it can get too heady. And we get lost in the headiness. I do, put that, this.
That's the tendency.
Yeah, it's got to be very simple for spontaneous rather than too heady. Because too heady, I'm just locked up in the thought form. You know?
Yeah, you're either attracted or repelled.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What if the purpose is just to be?
That's lovely.
Yeah,
Well put.
I like how you said like it was like your purpose, but then you said driven, and driven sort of feels kind of more resonant. Like you're driven. It's not an ego's purpose, but there's a drive to do something. As you say, you're attracted, you're repelled. Something brought you here. You were attracted to come here. So when I think of drive, I think it's not, me driving. I'm being driven. Yeah. Even if I crash sometimes.
It's like there's an impulse to action, and the action is occurring, and then the mind just is providing a commentary and creating a story about it, and it's not the enemy. It's actually okay for it to do that, and it's doing its creative thing of creating a story about what we're doing. And then, the moment we're going into I had this impulse and I liked that impulse, it's still just a story. And like, dislike, all of that is just occurring, and we're always going to like some things and not like other things because we want to feel good. So it's being with what is, but it's an impulse to action. Best laid plans are actually irrelevant. There'll still be an impulse to action, and the mind telling us after it's happened, the mind telling the story to make meaning of it. There's a constant narrative. It drives me batty sometimes. I think, stop it. But actually it just continues to do that. Oh, but, you know, No, but I was just going to say, but the thing about that also, as a writer, that's what we write. We write the stories of experience, you know, because as you know, I'm a songwriter, so that's what I'm writing about.
And it sort of reminds me of when you're watching the TV. When you're watching the TV, sometimes if you watch the people's mouths, they're a little bit behind. And it's sort of like what happened. The mind's always just that little bit behind the action. You know, the action happens and then the mind is just a little... And sometimes when I'm watching TV, I go, come on, guys, get the talking and the thing in sync, you know. But, yeah, it's like the action figure acts and then there's a narration. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, yeah. And I can have a total story about what I'm not going to do, and then I'll find myself doing it.
That's right.
Like you said, impulse.
Yeah.
What's your heart doing? Pulsating, naturally.
Mm.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And it was generally beautifully said, like Bob started with the still small voice of intuition. Then we had a run around the room. Jane beautifully expressed how you actually attracted the things where you find yourself, what you're doing. It's like really an impulse. You're attracted to finding home you never left. And then Maureen came with, oh my gosh, beautiful expression of that attraction in real life. Like, why would you go to the story? You follow that drive of the heart, non-conceptual, without the words, before the yapping commentary, like Dale was saying, before that one comes up. You follow the instinct from the heart, more kind of non-conceptual instinct. And yes, that all answer, I hope it all answers that question. And then, yes, Dale, when you explain how it actually happens, yes, you find yourself going somewhere and you hear the commentary like on a football game. You have this guy, like Jane is saying, just a little bit slow, just a little bit after the fact, you know, not matching. But because it's very short after the fact, it managed throughout the life to convince us that this voice is me. This is my deepest sacred self, which I need to defend and protect and make sure it's always right, and everyone agrees with that and everyone likes that. And I expect that self to give me a direction and a purpose. And if I don't feel it or don't have it, I'm lost and I'm depressed. And that is such an amazing way the after story becomes the hero of the story. And seeing how it happens, or the villain, but
I love how Bob just put it then, like he put it all back to pulse. It's like the impulse is the pulse of the heart, so you're actually being guided by the heart ultimately. So I really love how you just brought it all back to that, Bob.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It is beautiful. I was talking the other day with a man. We were just talking about personal growth. Well, he was very pro personal growth. You know, I'm like, well, there's no personal to do the growing. You know, when you were a baby, you started to walk, didn't you? And you learned a really complex language like English. But did you have to go to English classes? Or did it just start to happen? Like you just started to learn English and you just started to walk and things just start to happen. But our mind tends to, I have to make it happen. It just happens.
I have a couple of more comments from public. There is a gratitude for your sharing, Richard. Tanya says it was beautiful and helpful. Thanks for sharing, Richard. Beautiful words can't describe the appreciation for this sharing. And now we have love from John David. And then we have a couple of other things. Amarnath talking about purpose. And he says purpose, yes and no. Becoming person, me, thinker, separation, yes is an illusion. Impersonal consciousness, no purpose. Yeah, nice summary. Yeah, there is a seeming person, and the seeming person has seeming purpose. Well, that's the part of the costume. Seeming story about being this, that, and the other, and the direction, and the ambition, and all that. It all belongs to that costume. And impersonal consciousness, no purpose. It just is. It loves to be. That's it. Yes, beautiful, Amarnath. And now Tanya says, who you are not is the story. So no need to take the story seriously. It literally doesn't know what it is talking about. Laughing out loud. Yeah. Who you are not. And Caroline says, very clear, thanks for sharing, Jane. That's Amarnath. Purposeless, becoming purpose. And Ram says, love, with the euro at the end. And Heyman says, I learned many from Tas. And purposeless, becoming purpose, Vivek answers, purpose of mind is purposeless. Yeah, that's what mind does. Tanya, thank you, Bobcat and all. Best wishes for your operation, Bob. Beautiful meeting. Ever so grateful for having spoken to Bob. Much more clarity in the sky without the clouds. Couldn't recommend a chat with Bob more highly. And Caroline, it's like the action figure acts, then the narration follows. Well said, Jane. And now we have thank you messages and so much love for those meetings from JB and everyone. All the pointing to the impersonal, so wonderful. And much love from everyone. And yes, the next Sunday, Bob is going to be in a hospital. So if anyone wants to come, we will still discuss non-duality. If not, we'll have to just wait till he's back.
When is Bob's operation exactly?
Wednesday, 1st of December.
What time?
We don't know yet.
Oh, okay. So I just want to say I'll be with you in spirit, Bob, and I love you, and I'll be sending healing energy to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
All day, Wednesday, because we don't know the time. You'll be in
No,
my
we don't know.
consciousness. So
But is he going into the hospital on Tuesday?
No. As for now, we still have the admission day Wednesday. Things may change last minute because that's what happened 7 months ago when Bob was with this first knee replacement. Last minute they told us that he will be admitted on Tuesday, and on Tuesday they told us no, back to Wednesday. So we don't know. That's for today, the information. Tomorrow he's got the COVID test and admission on Wednesday.
Thank you all for contributing.
Yes, thank you.
So each one of you knows about it. Don't forget it.
thank you. Thank you for your generosity and encouragement to share. Really appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you for the shares.
Somebody shared it with me in the first.
Oh, and thanks to
That's
Nasagadata too.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks Nasagadata. Yeah. Yes, what passed through was passed on, Bob. Now we can pass it on.
Yes,
That's
and
what
we
I
have.
say. If you've got a full cup, you've got to pour some of it out.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. I'll be down the beach next week, so I won't be able to be here, but I'll be everywhere in spirit. So look out.
And a lot of people says thank you and love and good luck for the operation from a lot of people. And then yes, lots of love to everyone, and we
Lots of love
off
to
we
you,
go.
Kat. Thanks for putting it all
Thank you.
together.
Yes.
Lots of love.
Oh, thank you, Jane.